Good afternoon, everyone. Hope this finds you well. Neil McMullin today, your host on Going Solo on WGSN. And today I start off with a show asking the question, if not now, then when? I asked this, I got asked this a few years ago, quite a few years ago, in fact. And it didn't really register with me at first. And I was like, it's a little bit of an open question. So I gave it some thought and then gave it some procrastination and then gave it even more thought after that. And I was like, what's he on about? And it struck me a few years ago that how we live a life to some degree in the shadows of our true selves. So give you some history, because I'm new to this and I'm new to Going Solo, a new host. And so I'll give you some background information on myself so you can get a bigger background story about me. So I'm 39 and nearly 40 in nearly 8 weeks. Yes, Jesus, it's coming around quickly. November is my birthday, so which I'm really looking forward to that. I've got a big party planned with myself and friends and the close family. We're going to Spain for a few days and going to really enjoy the weather there. But I was born in Australia, born in Melbourne, 1981. God, that seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? But yeah, I was born there, lived there for 8 or 9 years. Parents then decided it was a great idea to come back to England from where they were from. So they packed my brother and I up. We came back, lived in England for a few years. Then my parents went through a divorce. Well, that parents sounded very strange. Sorry. We went through a divorce. They did. And my brother and I got the shortcomings of it all, sadly, but it made us stronger. And then my mum then travelled back and forth to Australia, taking my brother and I, see where she wants to live full time, I suspect. And then fundamentally, we came back to England when we were about, for full time, when we were about 8 or 9 years old. I was 8 or 9, sorry. My brother was 2 years younger than I. We then grew up in a small town in Northampton in England. Well, it wasn't rural. It's the second biggest town in England, by the way, after Reading, which I suspect being an American broadcast channel, you may not have heard those, but small towns anyway in comparison to larger ones in America. Went to school. I didn't want to go to college. When we left school at 16, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, all I wanted to do was play football, soccer. Sorry, my bad. All I wanted to play is soccer. So that's the only passion entirely, apart from art, that I had in my early teens to the late teens. And I carried on playing football. I still play when I go back to England, to be fair. And even sometimes here in Vegas, I pick a game up or two. But that's rare. But that said, in England, all I wanted to do was play football. I was gunning to be the next rising star, so to speak. But I never found my true way with it. And in these later years of my life, 20 years now on, I look back with not necessarily regret, but with some remorse, which I'll come on to in the later stages of this show. But I then finished school, got my what we call GCSEs in England. I got 9 of those, of decent level, decent grades. I wasn't really academic. All I wanted to do was I was very rather physical, playing sports, and that's all I gave up. Turn my hand to anything like building, woodwork. I love woodwork. I love machine turning, whether it was metal, woodwork, art, any form that I could be creative with or construct. So I got stuck into that really. And then come to my tender years, my mum and dad sat me down and said, "No, what are you going to do after school?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can't carry this on for another 6 years until I figure it out. What the hell am I going to do?" So I was like, I don't know. So I thought, I like traveling and I like talking to people and I love learning experiences. So why don't I go into the Marines or the Army Corps? So I went to enlist in the Marine Corps, but because I'm asthmatic, they turned me down. They said you can't even apply to become in the Marine Corps. So I was like, back to square one again. So where do I start? So I was like, what do I like doing? And then there was this thing in England called Meccano. And it was this brilliant thing. You got this load of metal work. You put motors with it, wheels, create anything. You create boats, ships, cars, trucks, and you name it. You can just destruct it and construct it to make anything and everything you can possibly imagine. So I was like, I know what I like. I like playing with electrics and electronics, so let me go to roll in an electronic course. Well, I missed the opening term, which started in September in England. It runs till September till May. And I was working part-time at a Hilton hotel. And there was all these university graduates in there, or college, sorry, graduates. And they were like just finishing up their courses and just doing it for an interval through the summer until they decided where they're going to go after they get the grades from the university. And so I got talking to them, and the university didn't really appeal to me. I didn't want to then go before university in England. You have to go to do what's called A levels, and A levels, then you get the grades suitable to go into university. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I love school. I love the education of it all, and had some amazing friends. But I was like still a bit lost with it all. So I was like, okay, Dad, enroll me in this electronics course. And he was like, okay, you start Monday. And I was like, that quick? I was like, man, I was early. I was hoping for a couple more weeks, and to earn some money. And at this point, I was also taking driving lessons to start driving. And that was a miserable experience as well. Even though I passed, it took me 6 on my sixth attempt. On my sixth attempt, I passed my driving test. Finally, it wasn't even that difficult looking back. So I don't even know why I was so nervous all the time. But 6 times later, I passed. And at that, you allow 15 minors on your grading by the instructor or the examiner, and I had 13. So thank God for those 2. But I passed nevertheless. So then after I decided I was going to go to college after my dad enrolled me, I then started doing an electronics course, which then allowed me to obviously play and divulge a little bit into the electronic world. And as I was, obviously the weeks turned into months, and as we were progressing towards Christmas, towards December time, I realized this isn't the electronics course that I desired for. And I was like, I really don't know what I want to be doing in life. In all honesty, I had no idea. So I was like, okay, well, I've started 3 months of it, so I might as well carry on till the 3-year course. So I may as well finish the 3-year course and see where it takes me. I did 3 years. I then got an apprenticeship for another 2 years. I did my apprenticeship on that. And then I used to do night school to further my qualifications, so I can become an engineer in it all as well, or further my engineering skills. So I did that, and I finished college around 21, 22. And I was like, this work in my life is not for me. I mean, I don't mind working, but getting up like 7:30, I had tool bags. I didn't drive at this time because, like I said, it took 6 attempts to pass driving tests, and that took over a process of 18 months. Oh, coming on to that driving thing. Once you pass, obviously, you need a car. So I brought a second-hand, well, probably a fifth-hand car off my stepbrother, and it sat there for 9 months while I attempted to pass my test. So I spent £600, which is roughly about $900, give or take. And this car sat there for 9 months, and I then sold it back to my brother, who I brought it from, for £400, so equivalent of $600. So effectively, I lost £300, beg your pardon, for a car just to sit there for 9 months. That was a bad investment. But that's all I had an end goal with it. Once I started doing my driving test, all I wanted to do was drive. It allowed me the freedom to get out of this small town, which I'll come on to later on again. But so I went through the transition and of finally passing my driving test, and I started my apprenticeship, and they gave me a van, and then I finished up my college course in my night school, and then I also finished up my apprenticeship with them, and they were a little bit stuck in their ways where they only paid a certain hourly rate, and I was like, I want to earn more money, and because believe it or not, I had a little bit of passion after those 4.5 years of school, going through school. So then I went to work for a large company, a national company that was based in Northampton still. And they put me on larger jobs that took me all over the country and even into Europe in some occasions. We used to do concessions for Gucci, Prada, and a few others. So I got great experience for that, and huge jobs. And I was pretty lucky to have that experience. But as I said, just before I was past my driving test and before I got a van, I was lugging all my tools on 2 buses to get to the job placement. And I was like, man, I can't do this for years. And as I was going through the years working with different people on sites, we work in hospitals, we work in the commercial sector, we work in the private sector. We did pretty much everything. It was a very good company to work for. But one thing I did start to realize as I was progressing through my 20s and as I came out of the back end of my apprenticeship was like, I took note of those who I was working with. They were very wise and incredibly talented guys that I used to work for, but they shared one thing in common. They were rolling into their later years in life, 40s, 50s and 60s, and they were still down on their hands and knees collecting scraps of cable. And, you know, we're working some hospitals, we're in floor cases, we're literally only 4 feet deep, and we were crawling around on our hands and knees. And I felt terribly sorry for them. I like their 62-year-old guy, 2 guys that I was working with in particular. And I was like, I do not want to be 62 years old and doing this in this position. And not that there's anything wrong with it. I just that I had this burning drive and this burning voice inside me that was like, I need to be doing more. There's more to life than this, what this is currently and where I want to be going with it. So then I started thinking about my life to some degree. I was dating a girl for a few years at that point. And we then decided a good chat and we bought a first house and then we refurbished that one quite quickly within a turnaround of 9 months. Then we went to buy another one, which became a larger home. And then we bought 2 dogs, beautiful dogs, St. Bernards, which I really got a soft spot for them dearly. And then we packed up and went traveling to Australia for a few months. And it was a wonderful experience. It gave us time to explore a different country. Even though I was born in Australia, I was too young and too naive to appreciate the beauty of it all and to have the exposure to meet different people in different walks of life and just to see a different culture entirely. We also stopped in not in the Middle East, in Asian countries, in Thailand as well, en route for a good few weeks and travelled around there as well, which was absolutely stunning. So I came back from Australia and I was like, I don't want to do electrical work anymore. I certainly don't want to work for anyone. So I thought it was a great idea. I said, I'm going to quit my job. And I said, that's it, I'm done. I'll start my own company. So at the tender age of 23, I started my own company, electrical company. And I grew it from there. I had people working for me and so on and so forth. And that transpired into a 10-year career, pretty much, 10 or 11-year career. And it wasn't until I was 33, 34, and I moved to America full-time at 35, when I certainly started asking questions more deeply and more profoundly about myself. I felt as if I've spent so much time working as an electrician through my company. I'd spend easily 12, 14, 16 hours a day working. Some weeks for a good 3 or 4 years, I'd work 2-3 days constantly. I'd work in a day, 7 till 7. I'll go back home, eat, change, and then I'll go back to work to do night shifts because we used to work in department stores throughout London and in Manchester and Birmingham in England, where we had to only do the works in the evening or through the night. So then I'll go there for 10 o'clock, do the works until 6, 7 a.m. until we have to be off the shop floor, and then I'll go to my next job. And I'll do that for years, and I absolutely look dreadful. I look back through some of the photos and I look at myself and I think, God, they were hard-earned 10 years. Some of the pictures with bags under my eyes, and I was like, man, I can't continue this. And it wasn't until a recent trip I had to Portugal through accidental means. I was on my way back to London for work and for a business trip, and I caught COVID. And I only found out when I arrived in Lisbon when I had to take another COVID test. And they said, I checked in from the flights and I was going to stand up, going to the gates, and they said, oh, so you need to go get another COVID test. No problem at all. So I went and got another COVID test to enter England, and they said it came back positive. Within 2 minutes, it came back positive. And I found myself with only the clothes that I was wearing and my laptop. That's all I had, and a small wash bag with a toothbrush and face washing and some deodorants. stuck in Lisbon for 2 weeks solid with nothing else. I had to find accommodation, and I had no means of obviously food or access to food, because I obviously couldn't go out from the accommodation that I was staying in. But one thing that did strike me when I was there is that I questioned so much of who I am and what I've done in life, to the point now where I'm going to share some of that finally with you. I've skipped a lot, but over the course of these next few weeks and coming months, I'll divulge more so we can get a better understanding, and so I can share more of my stories in hope that they may be helpful or more interesting. More importantly, you might enjoy it. And so I'll start with the if not now, then when question. I was in Portugal, and COVID struck me quite badly. I was severely ill. I literally couldn't swallow much at all apart from liquids. I was incredibly sore all over. My abdomen was incredibly painful, throat, head, fever, sickness. I did not want to eat anything, and I'm not too sure how much weight I lost, but I think overall it was around about 15 pounds in a space of 7 days. But thankfully I had someone very dear and close to me to help me out and order me food and check in on me daily to ensure that I was keeping pace with my eating schedule. But on that, I had a lot of sleeping and a lot of time to think, downtime to think, because there was only 3 English channels on this TV in this little apartment that I had to rent, and they were all news. So rather than being bogged down in the world's problems, I instead turned to my own, and started asking myself, as I say, more questions about myself and where I am and where I'm going and what I've done. More importantly, what I have done. And I certainly started realizing that as much as I have done throughout my life and throughout my career, if you wish, as an electrician, and now starting in a mobile app here in America and in Vegas in particular, I started asking, like, I haven't even scratched the surface level of what I want to be accommodating in my life and achieving. More importantly, what I'm wanting to do with the rest of my life. I'm nearly 40, and as much as my friends love to jib me about that, jib means take the mick out of me, to mock me about it, to laugh and make me the centre of the jokes because I'm getting older in comparison to what they are. But I started thinking, if I'm halfway through my life and now I haven't even done half the things that I want to be doing, then I need to start picking up the pace and really going to town on what it is that I want to be doing within the remainder of these next 40, potentially 50, 60 years that I look after myself for. And so I started to listen to this book, and if you've never listened to it, it's called The Art of Giving a Fuck. The Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And it was an audio book. And in the space of the 14 days I had in quarantine in Lisbon, I listened to it 4 times. And there's some profound stories in there that he shared with obviously those who read it and obviously those who listen to it equally. And more importantly, so it got me to thinking, like, how much I keep hold of the things in the past that we hold on to that almost hinder us and slow us down. And I'm going to share some of these stories with you, if you don't mind, and so you can understand where I'm coming from, and more important, where I'm looking to go, and that I can share with you to the points where I'm almost being held accountable on a public level. So, as I was growing up, as I said to you, all I wanted to do was play football. It's the only thing. I used to write letters to football clubs to ask them to come and watch us play football. The team I used to play for, we played at a decent level for our age. Well, I started when I was 11 years old playing football, and I remember my first training session with this team called Venturians, they were called. We had claret and blue football kit, and I was incredibly shy. I grew up with my brother and I. My dad remarried my stepmom, who had 6 other children by a previous partner. So we always had a big family, and within that there were some loud voices, shall we say, and loud mouths, more importantly, loud mouths in our family growing up. Not that it was a bad thing. It was a wonderful experience growing up. Christmas, birthdays, celebrations was amazing. But more important, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the comments. More importantly, though, all I wanted to do was play football. So I wrote to football teams, Manchester United, my team's West Ham, wrote to them, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal. I wrote to all of them. Come out and watch me play. This is our schedule for the next 9 months of the season. This is where we'll be playing. And I literally scheduled. I even sent out all the addresses for where the clubs, if we were playing away or if we were playing at home, what would the time for kickoff and the specific dates as well for us. I literally packaged it all together and said, guys, please come and watch me. I don't think they did. If they did, clearly wasn't good enough. And to this day, like I said to you, not that I regret it, but it's a failure of my part to recognize where I went wrong. I didn't apply myself enough. B, I didn't want it enough, and maybe that should be number one. I didn't want it bad enough, because if I did, maybe things would have been different. And I'm not in regret at all with it, but I certainly, if I could go back the time, there would be no second guessing about it. I'd be playing my heart out. And I look back when I was younger, in my 20s, and I certainly looked upon my parents to give me guidance and leadership skills in their role, in my role, because what I yearned for, especially as I carried it into my 20s and reflected upon it a lot, was that I looked to my father and to my mother to be taking me out to the football fields and training with me. And some of the friends I used to knock around with didn't live closely enough. The football team I played for is about a 25-minute drive away, so I couldn't necessarily go knock on the lads' door that I used to play with, because they lived too far away from me to even jump on a bike, because my parents wouldn't allow me to ride that far. And then secondly, because we had a big family, it didn't also allow for my parents to accommodate that facility to take me to my friends so I can play football for an hour or two, after school and whatnot. But looking back on it, and even in my 20s, and when I started playing at a decent level, we got paid a little bit, nothing here or there. It was really drinking money, if I'm honest. It was 20 or 30 pounds a game. But I took immense pride in that. And I wanted to do things on another level. I always kept myself fit. But one thing I did miss is I didn't have the commitment to be doing it day in and day out, to give myself the opportunity. And as I start going through these chapters in my life, when I was in Lisbon, like I said, laid up for 2 weeks, and I start peeling back the onions of myself and what I failed in on a personal level, and I start looking at myself and it's like, okay, you wanted to play football, but you didn't apply yourself every day. You didn't go training. You didn't go to go to the football pitch on your own and to practice and do skills and drills and so on and so forth. So I look on that and like, okay, that's a lesson to be learned, number one. Then I go look at my electrical career. Did I want to really be an electrician? No. All that drove me and that kept me in that game for 10 to 11, 12 years was money. And that's as much as it has allowed me to do the things I am doing now. I will take the opportunity again any given day to do something I enjoy more than the money I earn. And maybe that's a little bit easier to say that now as we're older, but if I could look at myself as a 20-year-old and ask the same questions what I know now as if I was 20, I'd certainly be asking that. And certainly I suspect it definitely would have different answers to come into my life and play a major role. Like I said, I started the company up. It was nothing I wanted to do on a large scale. I didn't want to have anything greater than 10 people working for me at a time. The maximum I kept it at was 6 or 8, purely from the fact of I didn't have the heart. I knew that I didn't want to be doing this as a career for the next 20 to 30 years. Purely from the aspect of what I've seen before me, the gentlemen that you guys I used to work with, the guys that I used to own the companies, and I saw their lifestyle. Not that my lifestyle was going to obviously mirror theirs, not at all. But what I mean is what it allows them to do, and it wasn't for me. So then I met a girl in Vegas, and I went into that relationship thinking, oh, this could be the one. And I done the honourable thing and asked her to marry me, and we got married 12 months later. But then what transitioned in that marriage was a volatile relationship, and I moved to America potentially for the wrong reasons, but for me at that time in my life, it was definitely for the right reason, and that was purely love. And I questioned not necessarily the relationship, but who I turned into, because the person that I became within that relationship wasn't the person I am now. And that comes on to the bigger part. Another question, number 2, if you wish, is, do we allow ourselves to be led? Let me rephrase that. Do we allow our lives to be led by others' opinions, by our fears, or our desires for our life, for our individual desires? And my desire is simple, is to push myself to the maximum possibilities that I can potentially ever do. And I'll come on to the finding of that for me in shortly. But just to go touch back on the marriage situation, I came to America with that, with the intention of great love and a great marriage. I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I got amazing business now, and I've got other business ideas that I'm looking to roll out as well. I'm in talks with others about that. But I came to America for a girl, and I truly believe that I loved her in the capacity that I needed to. And what it turned out was a relationship that didn't work out at all. It wasn't me. The relationship turned me into something that I didn't approve of myself. I didn't like myself. And in fairness, that probably transitioned into the relationship. It probably turned our relationship into something that it was never going to be, because I wasn't the person I needed to be. I wasn't the one who couldn't ask myself the deepest questions of, am I happy? Is this where I want to be? Is this the person I want to be spending the rest of my life with? So then I started getting, we transitioned into a 12-month marriage, and the marriage then lasted no more than 2 years, 2.5 years. I'm so grateful to say that the marriage ended over 2 years ago now, thankfully. And it's the best thing I've ever did, getting married and getting divorced. And because it's one of, should I say, big pun, it's one of the best things I've ever done, because what it allowed me is to go through a transition of seeing who I am, taking a plunge of doing something I was so deeply and profoundly proud of, to find a girl, to find a woman that I fell in love with, and to ask her to marry me and to grow old with. I was proud of that. I knew it was going to be hard work, and I was more dignified than ever to do that and carry out that ownership of what I committed to. But over the months and what turned into the short years, I turned into someone I didn't like. I lost myself within the process. And I asked myself, am I allowing this situation to change me, then vice versa? And what I mean by that is, do we allow the situations to change us, then us to change the situation for which we've been given? And as I've got a few years older, and I've had more time to reflect on the decisions I've made, and some of them have been good. I'm incredibly happy with some of the decisions I've made, but I've made a lot of mistakes as well, and I hold my hands up to that. I have no shame in owning my truths and owning what I've done wrong in the past, and acknowledging those and moving them forward. Because one thing I take pride in, and having the ability, is to not look backwards, to hold to those situations at a given time to hold me back. Because if we don't grow, then we're staying still and we're regressing. And for me personally, it was something that I desperately needed to do. And coming into that Lisbon trip, I didn't know that I was going to be finding these questions, or even looking deeply enough to be asking these upon myself. And it allowed me to see things differently in the light for which I think I'm still willing to learn and obviously to grow and understand myself. Is that, am I a problem of the situation, or is the situation a problem that I can resolve? And I think now, as I reach the tender age of 40, halfway through my life, I see that it is now has to be the latter. Any situation can be on. It's not a question of we're going to have problems in life. It's the questions of which problems we choose to have. We're all going to have problems. If we're unfortunate with not having enough money for our lifestyle at the moment, that problem is then we don't have enough money to go out, buy the latest car or the latest clothes or whatever it may be, or the latest holiday experience. Or do we turn it on its head and say, okay, if I'm overweight or I'm unfit, or these clothes are getting too big, too small for me because I'm eating excessively, or for me, personally, I was probably drinking too much alcohol when I go back to England, or even in living here in Vegas. Sometimes the weekends can get the better of me, and on Monday and Tuesday morning, I'm feeling groggy. And it took me some time to reflect upon that and realize that as much as I love going out and having a great time and seeing and doing and meeting brilliant people every weekend here, it's one of the benefits of living in Vegas. I certainly realized that my weekend action is having a negative effect on the rest of my week, because it's taken me to Wednesday to catch up with what I should have been doing on the Monday and Tuesday. So that's being said, looking at myself and looking what problems I had, I just stopped drinking on the week as much as I was on the weekend. So rather than going out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday night I'd be catching up with people after work. Saturday we were going out for an alfresco in the afternoon, and obviously carrying that into the evening and saying, it's only 11 o'clock. We've got till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. What can we do? Or going to a pool party, enjoying the beautiful weather here in Vegas. And then come Sunday, like, that was a heavy night, but I'm hungry and thirsty now. So let's go get a brunch. And, that brunch will start at 11 a.m. and it'll be a bottomless brunch, and it'll be $20 for as unlimited amount of mimosas. And there were some places that I used to frequent, and the guys that we got talking to, the servers, when they would go like, you're only meant to have it for 2 hours, but those 2 hours rolled into a 3, 4, 5 for 20 euros. And they're like, $20. And I was like, I'm good. Life's good today. And but what it happened is I'll come back and crash in the evening on a Sunday, watch a film, crash, probably fall asleep on the couch like a few of us do, and wake up Monday morning groggy and hungover, and Monday and Tuesday. So I nipped that in the bud, stop doing it, and I go out once a week now on the weekends, and not hit the bottomless mimosas as much as I enjoy them on a Sunday, but I do it once a month now or so. But what it has allowed me to do is train myself and train my mind each day and each week to see what it is that I really enjoy doing most. Because if I can minimize the damage I'm doing to myself, and that is predominantly alcohol, I have a fairly clean diet anyway, because I'm a plant-based diet. It allowed me to just reflect and take some time back from it. Because in Portugal, I wasn't drinking, I certainly wasn't eating either. And I felt so much better for it. On some days, I was sleeping for 14 hours a day. And it was amazing. I've never slept that much in my entire life. And I was like, oh, man, for once I wake up with no bags under my eyes. This is beautiful. Who's the person I look upon in the mirror? And it was a great moment for me. And as much as I was as poorly and sick as a dog laying in that bed and on that couch in that apartment in Lisbon, I was counting my blessings, because there were some dark nights I had, and I wrote my will out, and because I was at the point where I thought, if this comes, then I'll be disappointed in myself. I'll be disappointed because I haven't given life the best chance available to myself. And within that, I'll come on to the next questions, and more importantly, the question I asked myself. I'm near 40, as I've mentioned a few times, give or take. I can't play. I'm not going to be a professional footballer. As sad as that is for me to say, out in public. I am not going to be a professional footballer. So I started asking myself, okay then. I started reading a lot more because I had 2 weeks to do nothing apart from enjoy the beautiful weather in Portugal and get back to eating something of some normality. So then I started asking, what am I going to do for work? What do I want from myself? Work's a byproduct of what we enjoy outside of it, but we can't work 24/7. So what else do I enjoy? I enjoy keeping myself fit. I enjoy keeping myself in good shape. I enjoy eating great food. And thankfully for me, I enjoy eating plants, vegetables, fruit, bread. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's it. And a few tequilas and whiskeys and a few beers on the side. But so I set myself a new challenge. I came back from Portugal. I came back to Vegas. I did this last show, the last show I did. And then I went on holiday for 2 weeks, which was a beautiful time to get away and reflect even more so. And even during that trip, I read some more books. And I started reading a book did finish it as well, by David Goggins called Can't Hurt Me. And I read a few others by Mark Manson, great books. And another book by Matthew McConaughey called The Green Light. If you haven't read them, honestly, brilliant reads. You should definitely get them. But I'm going to set myself the challenge. I don't like running and I don't like swimming. So to be good at something, we have to do it daily. And we have to have the progression of doing something that we don't like to become better. Because if we only do the things that we enjoy, how are we progressing as people or as an individual, more importantly? And that's something I ask myself. So I don't like running. I like the benefits of running and keeping fit. I like the benefit of going to a gym and working out and being in good shape and being able to pick something up if I need to pick something up, or sprinting down the street if I need to catch a bus or a taxi, or heaven forbid a bar closing at a certain time, or catching a happy hour here in Vegas. But that said, and more importantly, I set myself a challenge from now, from last week, beginning of the week, until the end of 28 days. I'm going to run. I've decided, so I'm going to run a mile a day, a mile greater than yesterday. I beg your pardon, a mile greater than yesterday. I started off at 5 miles. I've said to myself, I will run 1 mile more than yesterday. If I can do one thing a day better than I did yesterday, then that's progress. I've also started swimming. I'm a dreadful swimmer. I wish I could be a duck in water. I wish I really could, but I can't. I really struggle with it. I have always struggled with it in my entire life. You know, I read a book once where it says Michael Phelps trained solidly for 5 years every single day. Could you imagine training 5 years every single day? That is amazing. And that is a commitment to obviously his achievements in life. And kudos to him. You know, he deserves everything that he has received through his hard work and graft. And I'm not on that level, obviously, yet. And nor do I wish to be an Olympian. Obviously, I'm going to be too old for one unless they've got a retirement age where you can go in and be one when you're 60, for example. But I digress some. But for me personally, I've set myself 2 challenges. Swim every day. Doesn't matter. It just has to be more than yesterday. I don't care if it was 1 stroke more than one yesterday or if it's 1 lap. It has to be greater. And then running 1 mile more than yesterday. And I broke it down. And the light dawned upon me is that if I do 1 mile more than yesterday for 1 month, that's a marathon at the end of the month. And now, granted, I'm not saying I can do it yet, but I'm going to bloody well give it my best shot and do it every single day. I've only got to run 1 mile. 1 mile may take me, 8 minutes. I've run an average of 7.5-minute miles. But I get up at 4 a.m. to 4:30 every morning. I eat breakfast, go to the bathroom, put my trainers on, put my shorts on, put my high vis on, put my running belt on, and I just leave the house, and I don't care where I run, even if it's in a loop. Ideally, I don't want to know where I'm running. I'd rather get lost. Then I have no excuses to come back. Just do a loop. If I know where I'm going, then I know if I've got the voice in my ear saying, "Oh, you've run 6 miles," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know where I am." That's enjoyment to me, because I'm having to put myself on the dark side of this to take myself to that next level. And that's what I've set myself with, is to set myself a challenge every single day to do something better than I did yesterday. Because I think I owe it to myself, and we all owe it to ourselves. Are we either going to be a victim of someone else's opinion of something we did yesterday, or are we going to be someone that we choose to be today and someone better to tomorrow? Because I personally have been through a lot. I've done a lot of wrong, but I've also done a lot of good in life. And I'm going to take great pride in proving to these people that I'm not going to have my future written by them or their opinions, because they don't see who one can be. Or more importantly, I suspect for them, is that they're living in the past, because their opinions are based on what's happened in the past. They're not based presently, because we were talking about partners, because we're not with them in a relationship anymore. That relationship ended, like, for example, 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 6 years ago. One's personal opinion of me, for example, is not justifiable to today. It was justifiable what happened in those 2 years ago, 4 years ago, or 6 years ago, like I say, but it is not justifiable now, because that progression of those 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, whatever person that you've come into your life who has an opinion on you, are you going to allow them to write your future? That's the question I asked on my bed when I was laying in Portugal, when I was coughing a lot up, because I'm asthmatic, I had a lot of phlegm on my chest because of the COVID, catching COVID. But I said no. No one has the right to write anyone else's future. I put the question to some friends back in England. It's a racing challenge. I said, guys, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm going to race each one of these races next year. A few these races in questions are 100 miles. There are 100 miles in Canada. There are a few in America. There's one in Mexico, I believe. There's one in Hawaii. I said, I just want to run 100 miles. Do you fancy doing it with me? Anyone? No, no. I have no interest. I'd rather sit down with a pack of beer, 6-pack, and, enjoy that and watch the football. I was like, fair enough. Even though these are the closest friends I grew up with, and they also play football, they were like, hell no, you're out, you got that mind. I was like, no, it's a challenge. I've got nothing to lose apart from anything to gain. Nothing to lose whatsoever. And they were like, nah, pass. So I asked some friends here in Vegas, and they were like, nah, you're out, you've got that mind. I'm not doing that. I was like, fair enough. And I spoke to a couple of friends about it on the phone, who I didn't message because I knew they wouldn't be interested. And they said, you can't do it. I said, why can't I do it? Tell me one good reason why I cannot run 100 miles in a time frame of 24 hours, or whatever the race limits or parameters are. I said, why can't I run it? They said, I don't think you can. I said, why? What governs you, friend, to say I can't do something? And that might be because of personal situations in the past. Like maybe I played football and I was like train session when I was playing football, beg pardon, or I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this game. Was it because of that, or is it because I didn't turn up for training a couple of times, or what was it? What allows you to have a representation of my life to say I can or cannot do something? And I think as adults, we owe it to ourselves, and more importantly, we owe it to the people that are closest to us, to have the time and to open our hearts and minds to give them the space that they need to accommodate these things they want to do in life. Because why not? What else do we have if we're not going to live our life to the fullest? That's the question we should be asking ourselves, and that's the question I take to bed every single night. What have I done today that I need to be doing more of tomorrow to improve myself? And that's within a personal relationship with my girlfriend. That's in a personal relationship with my friends back in England. That's in a personal relationship with my family. What do I need to be doing better than I've done today? And there's a lot in it. And sometimes it's exhausting. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that goes through our minds. There's a lot that escapes our gates to thoughts where we should be asking ourselves, why did you say that for? Why do you ask that? I ask a lot of questions. I like to learn and to listen. And maybe I speak a little bit too much, which is, I think we're all at fault for it occasionally. But for me personally, I think we owe it to ourselves to be asking, if not now, then when? When are we going to start doing the things that we want to do in life? If you need any more helps or tips, come and see me, because I love brainstorming. And if I've got it completely wrong, please leave me your feedback as well, because I'm all ears to suggestions and seeing things differently. So I thank you for the time for listening. And obviously, this is WGSN. And today, it's been an honor to speak to you and share my thoughts and my parts of my life that I'm proud of and not so proud of. But we grow each day. And with that, I'm going to go run a couple of miles. So thank you, guys. Going Bold Wednesdays, men's issues, topics, concerns. Stay tuned for more great shows coming up on the schedule. And until next time, guys, thank you ever so much.